the mind and senses that are attached to material life are one's greatest enemies. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmanachita. Krishna says that the mind that is uncontrolled is the worst enemy we have. In fact, the only enemy we have. If you trust your enemy, you are finished. You are defeated. You will be destroyed. The more you put your trust and faith in your enemy, the more your enemy can exploit you, manipulate you, and destroy you. So therefore, the greatest power of the enemy is to convince you that I am your friend. Just like in warfare, it is described by Bhishma Dev to Maharaj Yudhisthira that the greatest threat to one's kingdom is unidentified spies in your camp. One spy is more deadly than hundreds and thousands of soldiers coming to attack you. Because a spy that is undetected could reap havoc within your kingdom. So similarly, when the mind and senses convince you that they are on your side, that they are your friend, and direct you toward the objects of the senses, specifically and especially the association of the opposite sex for the purpose of sense gratification, then you should understand you are putting your life, you are putting your spiritual life in the hands of your most vehement enemy. Therefore, the hunter very, very carefully guards his prey. It is also described in Bhagavatam that the uncontrolled mind is like having a wife that is a prostitute. If your wife is a prostitute, you must be very careful to watch her activities. If she is given too much freedom to associate with her paramours, eventually those very paramours will come to kill you. So similarly, if we allow our mind and senses to associate with the objects of senses, and the supreme object of the senses is the opposite sex, then what happens is our spiritual life is murdered in due course of time. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was God himself, showed us by his own example the proper standard. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the sannyas order of life, was most merciful and compassionate to every living being. When it came to showing the mercy of bestowing love of God, he made no discrimination between man or woman, low class, high class, educated or uneducated. He gave the mercy of Lord Sri Krishna, he gave his causeless mercy freely to everyone and anyone. But as a matter of setting the proper standard for human society, he was very careful in his dealings with the opposite sex. There was a story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about one very young lady, Devi Dasi, who was singing in a very sweet and melodious voice the prayers by Jayadev Goswami from the Gita Govinda, which is describing the amorous love affairs of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, ecstatic love was awakened within his heart, and he just simply wanted to embrace whoever was chanting these beautiful prayers. He lost all conscience of material considerations of any form, and he began to run through the bushes with great anxiety to praise and embrace the reciter of these beautiful prayers. And as he was running, torn by the thorns, but he did not even notice it. And his servant Govinda, aware of the circumstances, ran behind Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and forcibly grabbed onto him and stopped him. My dear Lord, it is a woman that is singing. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately sobered up. And he looked at Govinda and he said, my dear Govinda, thank you for stopping me. You have saved my life. If I would have embraced her, I would have certainly died. Speaking of spiritual death. So although the Lord did not discriminate superior or inferior in terms of who was qualified to accept the mercy of Sri Krishna, but set the proper example of how to preserve our own spiritual sanctity. He taught us how to live a very strict life according to this principle. We should know that sense gratification is the greatest enemy to an aspiring devotee. We cannot think of Krishna when we are pondering upon the objects of the senses. Material sense gratification, more than anything else, strips us naked of any sense of devotion. Therefore, spiritual life is to always fix one's mind, always fix one's consciousness on the lotus feet of the Lord. And as long as we are thinking in terms of enjoyment with the opposite sex, it is practically impossible to fix one's consciousness on the lotus feet of the Lord.
You were listening to Radhanath Swami on devotionalnectar.com.